Does 2016 look like for the city of Providence? Well, we've got a journalist who knows all about it tonight. Honestly, if I need to know what's going on in the city of Providence, I go to Dan McGowan from WPRI.com. And of course, now he's doing a lot of television, so he puffs up. He's on Channel 12. You know, you catch him all the time. He is in the underwear of the city of Providence, and that is a respectful comment. And tonight, we've actually got some breaking news in the city of Providence with a school committee mayoral turbulent situation going on and a whole bunch more. So stay tuned for that. Don't go anywhere. Great to have you aboard. I know we talked about having something else last night. If you're taking notes on what we said the night before about what's coming up, we had a cancellation from the food editor of the Providence Journal, in case you were thinking that was happening. But she will return, schedules and all that kind of stuff. But it's not a second-class show tonight. We got a lot to cover, and serendipitously with what's going on in the city, I'm glad Danny is here. So let us go to the rundown and just cover a couple of things first. Yeah, I mean, this was something. A couple of different headlines and shots that will show the president literally weeping, not just tearing up, but weeping. So much so that he didn't bring a hanky. You'd think that Joe Biden would do something like, I mean, look at Joe. He's got a hanky right in there. He could have offered it. And a second shot as well. I mean, those are real tears. Remember, it looks like that, remember the Native American commercial that used to be, remember the Cherokee chief? Wasn't that the guy who used to cry when anyway, they were pretty prevalent tears. And it's no laughing matter. We're talking about gun issues here. CBS has got kind of a breakdown. And actually, maybe this is just the speech, right? Isn't that what we have, Lex? This is just the speech where you can see where the emotion came out of the president's.
Our right to peaceful assembly. That right was robbed from moviegoers in Aurora and Lafayette. Our unalienable right to life and liberty and the pursuit of happiness, those rights were stripped from college kids in Blacksburg and Santa Barbara and from high schoolers at Columbine and from first graders in Newtown. First graders. And from every family who never imagined that their loved one would be taken from our lives by a bullet from a gun. Every time I think about those kids, it gets me mad. And by the way, it happens on the streets of Chicago every day.
I'm not sure I would applaud that concept, but I get that that was an uncomfortable moment for the people in the East Room who were trying to follow along with the president there and support him with his tears. Look, we all cried about Sandy Hook. Don't tell me you didn't, because I know I did. I'm not going to blame the president or criticize him or make fun of him for crying. You know, crying is okay. There's no crying in baseball, by the way, but there's crying in real life. And by the way, the Native American chief, see, I'm politically correct, that I was thinking about was the Keep America Beautiful campaign in 1971, which my producer Lexi couldn't figure out because she wasn't even being thought about in 1971. Anyway, look, this is a serious matter. The executive order is really the provocative thing about all of this, and that is what the president's doing without the consent of Congress. But frankly, half the stuff that he wants to do needs to get funded by Congress. So it's a little bit more show and legacy saving than it is concrete, including the background checks, which, although there'll be resources beefed up on background checks for gun transactions, most of them, even the online ones, go through a dealer that has to do a background check anyway. So stay tuned. Of course, the Republican presidential candidates will fall over themselves saying these are lousy ideas and a bypass of Congress and it's not constitutional, and none of you will pay attention to that because you just don't pay attention to things like that. Hey, here's a couple of numbers which are kind of interesting. Well, there's a set of numbers in New England that are interesting when it comes to comparative: Massachusetts, Connecticut, Rhode Island. Here's the headline on WPRI.com. We're the only state with no fatal officer-involved shootings, meaning police officers shooting people. Here's Perry Russom's story.
Rhode Island is the only state in the country where a police officer did not shoot and kill someone last year.
The baseline for us is a lot of training.
The facts were first reported by the Washington Post. They compiled the statistics showing Rhode Island being the single state where police did not kill anyone with a gun. We went to state police to find out how that happened and what they're doing to prevent the use of deadly force.
We go through a tremendous amount of training to save a life or to take a life. And that's a split-second decision by a police officer, one that he has to live with for the rest of his life if ultimately he has to make that decision to use deadly force.
Lieutenant Colonel Kevin Barry also tells us now every trooper on the force has a taser on their belt.
And that's another tool that we can use to neutralize a potential threat.
The Post is reporting in 2015, 983 people were shot and killed by police. Looking at states surrounding Rhode Island, last year in Massachusetts, 9 people. In Connecticut, 2 were killed. In both states, all of those shot and killed were men.
It's something that nobody wants to do, but at the end of the day, if we have to protect the citizens and ourselves to go home at the end of our shift, that's what's going to happen.
Hey, listen, notwithstanding the notion that the Rhode Island State Police may be the best police organization in the country, and I mean that, I'm not pandering. Notwithstanding that, I think the Lieutenant Colonel better be a little careful with the bravado over this kind of stuff, you know, because sometimes it's just a circumstantial and numbers luck of the draw type of thing. Last thing you want to find out is in 2016 it happens 3 or 4 times and then we league New England and then you go, oh geez, well, you know, the training situation. So I would be careful being cocky about that number. It's all situational. We'll have the colonel in soon to talk about that. That's not a criticism of the state police. It's just, you know, watch your P's and Q's on being too proud of a number like that. Trump in Lowell, yeah. Speaking of numbers, 8,000 people jamming into the Tsongas. And Paul Tsongas is rolling over in his grave, by the way. I can promise you. He's a hard and true liberal Democrat. We have headlines and that kind of thing, Kev? Yeah. Oh, there were protesters, though. I hate it when that happens. And he tosses a couple because that's what he does. He's like a guy that he's an umpire that you want to see throw people out. Because if he doesn't throw some people out, he doesn't have a rally. And he always talks about them.
They remind me a little bit of Hillary. Yeah. No energy, no stamina, no strength.
No new material. It's no energy, no stamina, no strength for everybody that doesn't meet his, I don't know, qualifications. I wonder how he'll feel about Joe Trillo's stamina and strength. Yes, the former Lion of the General Assembly, State Representative Joe Trillo, is now the honorary chairperson of the Trump campaign in Rhode Island. He was on the radio earlier today.
I think he says what a lot of people think and are afraid to say. I think he's thrown away political correctness for the most part, and I believe, as he believes, that political correctness has got this country in a lot of trouble.
Yep.
And we keep going down this path. I mean, you know, we've done everything to be politically correct, and it's hurt the country tremendously.
What's hurt Rhode Island tremendously, Joe? You selling out to the Democrats, cozying up and wanting to have dinner with Democratic leadership as a bigger priority than the kind of things you used to allegedly fight for in the General Assembly. Asked today whether he knows Donald Trump, Joe Trillo said, "No, I haven't met him yet, but I know a guy who knows a guy who knows a guy who knows a guy. And I got an email, Trillo for Trump at AOL, and if you want to hold a sign, send me an email." Pretty sophisticated effort. I wonder if that reflects the entire campaign across the country. And finally, speaking of campaigns, Bill's in for Hill. It was sooner or later, right? Full screens, as we say in our business, headlines. He loves the old people because he's one of them now. All due respect to those of you who are, and I'd hope to be, or I might be, according to some. Here's CBS coverage of that.
I do not believe in my lifetime anybody has run for this job at a moment of great importance who was better qualified by knowledge, experience, and temperament to do what needs to be done now to restore prosperity.
In New Hampshire, on political ground the Clinton family cherishes, Bill Clinton made his first solo surrogate visit on his wife's behalf. The 42nd president credits the state for his campaign's revival in 1992.
I think this election is about restoring broadly shared prosperity.
The former president picked up with voters where he left off from Hillary's 2008 primary victory in the Granite State.
I met a president.
I always say every American should have a right to meet at least one president in a lifetime. Every American. And in New Hampshire, your odds go way up.
Meanwhile, in Iowa, the candidate herself, Hillary Clinton, continued her campaign, turning over a new Trumpian leaf.
I'm going to let him live in his alternative reality, and I'm not going to respond.
I wonder if Bill will. I wonder if Bill will be the Trump-fighting proxy. My guess is no. My guess is that he's not going to get into that gutter. By the way, the highest popularity rating in politics in America, Bill. Time changes everything. Time to take a look at 2016 in the city of Providence. Let us look at this headline and let us bring in journalist extraordinaire, not only for the city of Providence, but a lot of things local. Dan McGowan joins us. Happy New Year, everybody.
Happy New Year. Thanks for having me.
Good to see you. So the city council says maybe some taxes for 2016?
Yeah, it sounds like, as you know, and as we've talked about before on this show, the city's facing still some, a rough patch financially. Just had a $5 million deficit for the last fiscal year. Still unclear what it's going to look like for this year, but as they get prepared for the next budget, which begins in July, Council President Aponte told me last week, looking like there will probably be a residential tax hike. So we're not going to see car taxes, not going to see anything like that, but those homeowners that, live on the east side, they'll probably get whacked.
Just the east side?
Well, no, I mean, that's the
Prorated.
primary value, and but yeah, throughout the city, you'll probably see some sort of tax hike.
There are a lot of people who think that the city of Providence is teetering on bankruptcy.
Yeah, there are. I mean, that's certainly a push from a lot of people, maybe who don't pay as close attention to the city as maybe I do, or as others who really cover it every day. I don't think the city's in that position yet. If you look at just there are things that they can do, including a tax increase that would cover some of the problems. Now, that's not a great answer for a lot of people, but if you look at, for example, residential property, 19 other communities have higher tax rates than the city of Providence in the state of Rhode Island. So you could raise tax rates before you go into a bankruptcy or a receivership. Again, not what people want to hear, but that is certainly something that's on the table.
I think residents, whether they're on the east side, where perhaps there's more affordability, versus the south side, where it can kill a homeowner, right, or a landlord, investing in trying to rehab buildings there and the like. If you're getting new services, if there's new stuff for a tax increase, it's generally more palatable. But when you're just holding on, it's a problem.
You're exactly right. I mean, you look at the city budget, 25% of the city budget goes to pensions, retiree, health care, and then old, debt service, paying back when you borrow for streets or, pave roads, things like that. 25% of the entire budget, it's almost a $700 million budget, already a bunch of it's out the window. You're exactly right. I mean, I talk to people every day. I live in the city of Providence. It would be nice to, if I'm paying taxes, to maybe get, maybe the roads be a little smoother, things like that. So, yeah, it's a legitimate complaint, no question.
When we come back, we'll talk about the ongoing saga that could put a whole lot more pressure on this deficit that the city has, and a breaking story, some political this going on in the city. Stay with us. So since we were on this deficit issue and a perhaps raise of property taxes in the city of Providence with Dan McGowan, who reports on lots of things but specializes in the city of Providence, let's put up that headline that has been, I think, the Achilles heel of this mayoral administration, despite some, annual nicey-nicey reviews by some people in the media. This is the one I think that could bust this guy's status as a sitting mayor. I'm not kidding, because if this thing blows the wrong way, it could be a big problem. You and I have chronicled this over and over. The firefighter union continues to have little wins toward the big loss for everybody.
That's exactly right. And if you talk to virtually everyone who is paying attention to this in any way, and that includes lawmakers at the State House, that includes lawyers who are interested in some way in the city of Providence, it includes former and current elected officials, and they all say, it doesn't seem like the city is on firm legal grounds here. The biggest difference, right? The city points to that North Kingstown's decision. North Kingstown did not have a contract, Providence did have a contract, and that's what they've been told time and time again. At first when all these decisions were coming down, I kind of said, oh, maybe I'm wrong. You guys are lawyers and experts, maybe I'm wrong. Then a judge said it, and then we know that they've gone to the Supreme Court and they've had conversations in chambers, been sent to arbitration. Everybody's pointing to the same thing. There's a contract in place. It's going to be very difficult to break that contract.
And in case you're catching up, because sometimes guys like Dan and I get into the middle of the sandwich, this is about the move from 4 platoons to 3 shifts for the firefighters in the city of Providence, and the decision by the mayor to enforce that, stutter step as it was, because he tried and couldn't get it done, and finally said, I'm doing it. And he's had to give them an 8% raise because he had to give them something.
That's right.
The disparity is like a 33% increase in their work day or work week. There's a big gap there. And it's going to end up in arbitration because the Supreme Court would not rule out arbitration, which means an arbitrator is going to make a decision, which is going to be a lot more than 8 and maybe a little less than 33.
That's right.
But it'll be significant. And it could represent anywhere from, 5, 10, 15, maybe $20 million by the time this process rolls out in back pay due with a city that reportedly is in hock to raise property taxes.
That's exactly right. I mean, here's the problem is the longer this goes, the more the bill keeps running up, right? And you look at the firefighter, on the firefighter side, they've already hit their ground level. They're not gotten any worse than 8%, the pay increase that they're already living with right now. If it goes slightly up, 15, 20%. If it goes to 33%, if it goes to time and a half, which they expect to get, I mean, we could be talking in the range of $9 to $10 million a year, and that's where you say, you go 2 years of this, you end up with a $15, $20 million back wage bill, which the city doesn't have.
Then you got political dead bodies all over the city, because if that's enough to push the city into a receivership status, that will, should that process play out the way we've seen it play out in Rhode Island, that will nullify contracts.
That's right.
And so the firefighters can win, and so that's the only figurative gun that Elorza has at the union's head to say settle.
Right, but you could win the battle, but you'll lose the war.
But Mayor Elorza loses everything.
That's right.
Because he ran the deal into the ground.
Right.
There's a way that he could have fixed this. He could have pre-negotiated a 2017 renewal of the contract.
Right.
The firefighter union, not all of them are this good, but the firefighter union has shown that they will negotiate ahead. But anybody who wanted a 33% more work week was got to figuring they're going to, you got to pay for it.
Right. I mean, and that's the thing is that it makes logical sense. Now, look, this process hasn't been perfect on the firefighter side either, as we've talked about, and as there's been lots of reports in the news. Firefighters screw up from time to time. Certainly, the mayor has kind of tried, or at least the mayor's office has really tried to target them. But there's no question. The bottom line is,
you mean individual behaviors?
Individual behaviors.
Yeah,
exactly.
Well, listen, sentiment is not necessarily with the firefighter union. But when you break it down, most people go, yeah, you know
what? The law may be. That's the thing. Sentiment might not, but the law may be on their end.
I think Elorza's making a bad calculation that he thinks public sentiment's going to save him in this whole situation. Right. His lawyers that are working with this, they graduate from the Kmart Law School, or where did they come from?
It's ideal with these people. So they have good arguments. They seem like smart guys. That said, there's no question that I try to talk to lots of different lawyers outside of the city. They all say the same thing. Firefighters are in pretty firm legal grounds.
Right. So add that to the distress of the financial situation in the city of Providence. When we come back, there's some political distress, and Dan's got the background on that. Stay with us. A big story today.
Can I offer my perspective on that?
You can.
Because my philosophy is, and my service on the board is, and I think my colleagues would agree, that our service is a public service, and that public service is to the students and the families who we serve in the district. In my view, it's not a political service from that respect. And so while we consult with the mayor and we work collaboratively with the mayor, I think we have the mindset that we try to make decisions that are in the best interest of students and families.
Well, that's a recent visit from the school board president, Keith Oliviera, in Providence, who walked out the door. What happened?
Yeah, so Keith,
you wrote the story. Here's the headline from Danny's story. You got to read WPRI.com and get the bottom line. He says the mayor was interfering with him. What happened?
Yeah, Keith Oliviera and the mayor have had sort of a dicey relationship for several months now, going actually back to March or April of 2015. Big fight over the school budget. And Keith Oliviera wanted more money allocated from the city side. The mayor said, basically, we don't have it, we can't do it. That kind of continued and sort of and got to a point where there's a school board election coming up because there's a couple of new school board members. This is a mayoral appointed school board, as you know, and basically now they're having an election. It sounds like there was probably going to be a change, and so Keith kind of jumped the gun on it and said, I'm out. I'm not going to, I'm not even going to stay on the board.
Meaning they were squeezing him out?
Yeah, I mean, squeezing him out, there's always the ability to, have an election every time a new school board member gets appointed. There's no question, we asked the administration a couple of weeks ago, is Keith going to be are you supporting Keith to be the school board president? They had no comment. All signs certainly pointed to a new president.
Well, they commented on his exit. We've got a quote attributed to Evan England, who's the communications director for the mayor. The mayor believes that strong collaboration amongst everyone in the city is essential. Mr. Oliveira's decision to resign ahead of the apparent loss of his leadership role is unfortunate. Was he Karnak? The mayor had accepted his resignation, has accepted, and looks forward to well, to your investigative instinct and reporting, obviously they knew he was done.
Absolutely.
They said it's a rigged system in the school committee. This is why I asked him, if you'll remember, the reason we played that audio for you when I said that the school committee operation was political. In Providence, they're not elected by the people. They're appointed by the mayor. Right. Well, part by the mayor.
No, all appointed by the mayor with the approval of the council.
With the approval, right? With the approval of the council.
No one ever gets denied.
And then there's an election amongst the committee for the chairpersonship. So clearly, this mayor was playing the politics he's allowed to play.
That's right. That's right. And
look, squeeze this guy. But this guy's a fairly sharp guy.
Absolutely. Had a very good relationship with former Mayor Angel Tavares as well. Has, been around for a long time, works for a charter school.
Is he rumored to be running at some juncture?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely, I actually talked to him about that today. He said, I've been asked to run for 20 years in various places, but I asked him specifically, are you going to run for mayor in a few years? And he said, we'll see. When one door closes, another door opens. It was one of those kind of comments.
But wouldn't you want to, in a system that's kind of set up to, excuse the term, suck up to any mayor, why wouldn't you want to be the voice that said, I'm thinking a different way, and establish, not gratuitously, but for legitimate reasons, an anti-position?
I thought the exact same thing. If I go to the school board meeting next week and there's some issue that the board's voting on and they're all voting in lockstep with the mayor, that's right. Then I'm going to quote the person who's not in lockstep with the mayor. And now with him not being on the school board, it makes him less of a high-profile person.
Right, like you make me the Achilles heel, well, guess what? Toyota, you've got it.
That's right.
As opposed to you take your ball in your bat and you go home.
Yeah. I mean, the way I asked him about that, he kind of said, look, I just cannot work with these people, meaning the administration. You can respect that. He certainly doesn't agree with the vision, but I agree. I mean, just politically, you would think, why not be the thorn in the side?
All right. Well, you got to read Dan's story on this to get more details, and I'll try to get the former school committee chair back in here to find out what he was thinking. Feel good? 10 seconds. Feel good about the city's health and welfare in 2016?
I think they still have a lot of work to do, but it's a great city. Like I said, I live there, so I don't just cover it. I think it's a great place to be, but they definitely have work to do. That was a political answer.
I was waiting for you to admit it. Final word when we come back. Good work, huh? Yeah, so the city of Providence in 2016, hold on, because it could be a heck of a financial ride, no doubt. Keep reading Dan McGowan because he's got the whole thing covered. Hey, tomorrow, the folks who are protesting at the Chili State House over the truck tolls, right back in here, and I'll see you on the radio at noon tomorrow on WPRO. Thanks for watching. Good night.